Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we're going to look at AWS Lambdas and we're going to create a Java Lambda function. And I've already shown you how to do this with a very simple Lambda that just returned an object. But what if we want to create a Lambda proxy? The difference between Lambda proxy and just a normal Lambda is that when you have a Lambda proxy, then you need to say exactly which HTTP response should be given to the client. That means that we need to return an object that is much more complex than just the spaceship that we returned the last time. But let us just jump right into it. It's going to be a lot of fun as usual. So, I'm going to press this button right here, and I have prepared some code, of course. Yes. So first of all, the last time, what did we do there with the last Lambda? This is not the project. I'll just minimize that. Here we have the lightweight project. We saw last time that we need to have a jar file that is less than 10 megabyte unless we want to use the S3 bucket to upload it to Amazon, or else it will not accept the jar file. And what I'm talking about is in the UI. If you go to Amazon and then you will go to the console, then you go to the Lambda menu point right here. And if you cannot find it, then you just search for Lambda right here, LAMBDA, because they have so much stuff. Then they actually have the search bar here. Then you press Lambda, then you end up where I am right now. I've already created some demos, as you can see right here, also to practice for this video right here. But what we want to do is we want to create a new function like this. And then we name this function could be named video tutorial 2, maybe something with proxy, because that is the difference from the last video. So, and we want to use Java 11, and as I also showed you last time, there's a lot of languages here. We could have created a Python, a Ruby, a Node.js, a Go, or even a .NET. Yes, Lambda. And the cool thing about the smaller languages is that actually there's an editor that can be used, but for Java there's no editor in this console right here. And let me just create the function. So now I'm creating the Lambda function, and tonight we want to use the proxy instead of just returning an object. It has been created right now. Maybe let us just see what it says. I did not like the documentation on this subject actually, just to fill out the void, but I'll show you that in just a while. So here we have the Lambda right there. We do not have any triggers, and it's at the trigger actually we say that if this Lambda is a proxy, is of the type proxy Lambda, or if it's a normal Lambda. And the default is actually proxy. So many developers are actually stuck, because then you create this new trigger, this new HTTP trigger, and then they don't understand why does it not work, why doesn't it return my JSON, my object. And this is because per default it's proxy, so you need to return something special. You need to return a special formatted piece of JSON, which I will show you. And then we have the function code. This is where we upload the zip file right here, and here we can only upload 10 megabytes, or else we need to use the S3 bucket. I'll create another video where we are actually creating a Spring Boot application at around 24 megabyte, and then we will upload that to the S3 bucket. But for now I'm going to use this lightweight Java project that I have right here. So we want to create the Lambda, so we have something to upload. That is step one. Second step is that we want to set up the HTTP API, the Amazon HTTP API. We want to set a trigger for our Lambda. So that's the second part. But the first part, and I had to prepare some classes to do that, because this is the Lambda from last time, right? If you could probably recognize this, we are returning a spaceship, and we are implementing the request handler right here. And we are taking a map as an argument, and then we are returning a spaceship like this. And the last time we created this project by pressing File, New Project like this. Then I selected Gradle, and then I ticked off Java, next, finish, and then I went to my build.gradle file to add some dependencies. The JUnit test was added automatically for me, but I added Lombok because I really like that. I think it's almost impossible to code without Lombok. It's just much easier. We save so much time with the code generation there. And then I added all of these dependencies right here, and I found those on the tutorial page, on the Amazon Java tutorial page, They had a Lambda example right there, and then they said, please import these 6 dependencies right here. I'm not sure that I need to import all of them actually, but that's what I've done. Yeah, so that was the one from yesterday. Very simple Lambda. Now we're going to create something that's a little bit more. Now we're going to create a proxy Lambda. It's a little bit more complex because instead of just returning an object, we need to return something, a Lambda proxy response, and this is a class that I've created myself, but I've created from the specification in their documentation. This is actually copied from their documentation, and then I've created these fields right here. Is base 64 encoded. We need to say that this is the HTTP status code. This is the headers. Do we want to add some headers? And yes, we want to add a silly mic header just for fun, so you can actually see that it matters what we do with this. That when we return a Lambda proxy response, we get a bit more. We are more in control of what is actually returned to the client, to the HTTP client. This is multi-value headers. This is only used if you have headers where there are multiple values. So if we have a header with an array as value, then you would use the multi-value headers instead of just the headers. The headers, that is just key value. That means you have a string and then you have an object, which is not an array. And with the multi-value headers, then you can use an array as the value. The body needs to be a string. The body needs to be a string. That's very important to know. That means that if you want to return some JSON, if you want to return an object, then you need to convert it into JSON first. It's actually quite annoying, actually. It's not that bad, but I think it's just a bit clumsy. So, but it is a string. But I can also see it actually makes sense, right? When you have a HTTP response, you have a body part, which is a string, of course. So it kind of makes sense. And it's also a little bit annoying. Then we have the request. I also had to create this object before I created this request. And if I just used the map as their own tutorial example show, then I would get a weird deserialization error. And it was actually because the request it could actually not. There was some problems deserializing the request with Jackson. But when I then instead of taking an hash map, if I then specify then that this is the objects that that I want as a request, then everything actually works as it should. So a good tip for you, and you can get all this code. You can just check it from GitHub. It's made available and free to download as usual. So this is the request, and inside the request we actually get some information that we can use. We get the headers of the request, we get the query string parameters, and then we get the path parameters, we get the state variables. This is very important because you can do a lot of cool stuff with the state variables. You can fudge in a lot of weird variables from Amazon with the state variables right there, and you can also determine which database you want to connect to. If you have if you have a production stage, you could also do it here. There's multiple places to do it. You could also do it in the path, of course. You could also do it in the query string parameters, but you could also do it as state variables. So you can actually connect to the correct database with state variables. Then we have the body of the request. So this is all the HTTP request. This is base 64 encoded, no it's not usually. Yes, so that is it actually. It's actually quite cool. It was actually quite fun when I made this Java class, because then suddenly I actually I'm in control of what's actually going on, and I can do a lot of cool stuff inside my Lambda proxy if I want to. Then I see the Lambda proxy itself. Here we have the Lambda proxy. It looks almost like the other Lambda, and the only difference is still the request handler from this package right here, Amazon AWS Services Lambda Runtime, that we are implementing. But the generics are much different. Here we say that the request is my own request class that I created, and the response is my own response class that I created. So that is the huge difference. And then I'm defining a JSON builder right there. So this is actually taken from the Amazon tutorial example. They had that line right there. And what that helps me do is actually, if you go down to the code, first we are defining a logger so we can log stuff. And this is very important for debugging, of course, and also in the beginning to see that it actually works. I have started with this statement, so then I know that now my Lambda has been called, and it starts right there, and then I ended up right there. And it should actually be placed 2 lines further down. If you're using IntelliJ, you can use Control Shift and down and up to change the line, to change which line it should be on. And then so I log stuff, I log some stuff. Then I create a new spaceship right here. This is important, right? So And let us change the model to pyramid, and we change this to 55% of fuel, and the caption could be Mike. Yeah, let's just leave it at Mike. Then we have, then I'm creating a header map. That's because I want to show that I can manipulate and decide which headers should be returned to my client. And I am adding this silly header right here. Greeting from Mike in camel case like this, and then hello, hello, hi, 1, 2, 3, right? So that is my header value, and then I log that now we're done. And now I create my response, and I really like the builder pattern, and I added add builder, and that means that I get Lombok to create the whole builder pattern for me. So that means that then I can just get a builder like this, because the builder class had already been created for me by Lombok. Thank you very much again, Lombok. It cannot be said enough. Status code. This is HTTP status code I want to return to the client. 200. Everything is fine. The headers. I said that twice, so let me just delete that. That was an error. Is base 64 encoded? No, base 64 encoded. You use that if you want to transfer files, for instance. Then you can use base 64 encoded. I'll not cover that in this video. There are other videos about that. Then we have the multi-value headers. Right here, we do not have any headers where we have an array as value, so that is empty. Then we have some headers, right? Now I want to use this header map right here, because I want to add this greeting from Mike header, and then I want to set up the body. And look what I'm doing right here. I need to convert my spaceship manually into JSON. Yes, manually. If you're used to Spring Boot, then this will piss you off in the beginning, but it's actually not. It's not that difficult, right? It's actually okay. The JSON converter it's very easy to use, as you can see right here. One line, right? Then we build it, and then we return the whole thing. This is all Lambda. This is the new Lambda, the awesome Lambda proxy that we are going to use. Let us build this project right now. Build. Compiling Java, build, and yes, screen, no errors. And to the person that actually asked me, what about tests? It's still very easy to test when you're dealing with the proxy. Because this is my test class now. Now we are down in the AWS awesome Lambda proxy test right here, and we have a test method right here, handle request. I'm creating a dummy context. It does not matter. I'm not using a context right now. So then I create a request. So this is my dummy request that I'm creating. And then I say new awesome proxy, and then handle request. Give me my dummy. I give it my dummy request, my dummy context. Then I print out the result, and then I assert not null for some of the fields. We can try to run that. So it's quite easy to test. Of course, I'm not connected to any databases or any data sources or any RabbitMQ or anything like that. So of course, it's much easier in this situation right here. If you are connected to things like that, then I would recommend that you mock as much as possible, or else you can also use the test containers that actually spins up a local Docker instance, and then you can test that everything works as it should. You could also run your test directly against the clouds. Then you can just set up. Of course, you need to set up a test environment for that if you want to. And this video is not about that. So let us continue again. So now we created the jar file. So I will upload it now. Upload the zip file, and you can see here it's only 12.5 kilobyte, and the timestamp is now. Save like this. And then we need to set the class right here. This is not the class. First the package, then the class. So I'll go to my proxy right here. This is my Lambda proxy. I'll copy the package right there. I will then copy the class right there. And the method is named handle request. I do not need to change that. I am happy now. And then we add the trigger. And this is where the weird part comes in. Because now we want the API gateway. As I also said the last time, there's a lot of weird triggers. We can trigger on something happening in an S3 bucket, or a lot of things. Kafka, on a Kafka broker, in the Kafka queue, in the MQ, there's a lot of weird stuff, right? So the Datadog, if something happens there, then you can also that can also trigger. your Lambda. But now we want to create a new API, want a REST API, so we press REST right there. Security open, no security at all, add like this. And when it's done, then we will end up in a place where, first of all, let us test the Lambda by itself without testing the HTTP interface. So that means that I can press test right here. I can create some kind of event right here. I can add some key values right here. And then I can press create. Then I just give it a good name, give my event a good name so I can test something. Press create. And then I press test. And then we can see that everything actually works fine. And this is the response that our Lambda generated. And here we can actually see this is the JSON that was created with the JSON utility. But of course, we would like to test this through the HTTP API, because that is where things actually very often go wrong. And the reason why they go wrong, it is actually already exposed on this endpoint right here. But let us wait for that. First I want to go to the Amazon console. I want to go to my endpoint, to my HTTP endpoint, and then I want to try to test it within that. And as you can see right here, so we got a resource which is also, we got a default resource which was created for us, video tutorial 2 proxy. If you don't like that resource, if you want this to, if you want people to go to /Mike, it's awesome or something like that, instead, then you just create a new resource right here. On the resource, then you need to create a method. This is a HTTP method that will lead to the Lambda. So right now it's any. That means that I can use get, I can use put, I can use post, I can use delete. It does not matter. My Lambda proxy will be used anyway. And as you can see right here, the default is Lambda proxy, and this is where many people go wrong, because if you did not want to make a proxy, if your Java program just returned an object, for instance, if I just returned the spaceship, then instead of this, then you had to create a new method. It could be get, it could also be all, of course. Then you could create a new method like this. And then you would have to not tick off this use Lambda proxy integration. You should not tick off this. If you did that, and if you saved it, and you can also Lambda function. Of course, here you will need to paste in the Lambda name. We did that in another video, so I'm not going to continue with that. I'm just going to tell you that that is what you would do if you did not have a proxy. And I want to delete this now. Delete method, yes. Thank you very much. Let us go back to any, because we want this proxy right now, because this is exactly what we want. And we can see the flow from a test or from a client. Then it runs to method request. There's no authentication. We can see that right there. And then we end up in our Lambda down here. And the Lambda name is also down there. And then we go back, integration response, yes. And then we get a HTTP response to the client. Let us try to press the test button like this. And then I choose get right here. And I do not want any special headers or any query strings. It does not matter. Look what we actually got back. This is the body. We got status code 200 back. Look at this header right here. That is because we have decided that we wanted this extra header right here. Greeting from Mike, and this is my greeting, hi 1 2 3. Awesome, right? So the cool thing about the proxy is you can decide exactly what the client should actually get. Let us put it let us put it out there on a stage so everybody can now reach this endpoint right here. I'll delete it after the video. So if you try exactly this this URL, okay, it is actually already been deployed on. It's called deployed. You're deploying it on the stage. The stage is called default, which is fine. I'll just show you how to deploy it manually if you want to create this manually. But it is created automatically. If you when you are here, then you can actually press actions, then you can press deploy API, and then you can choose an existing stage, or you can also create a new stage. Or you can also create a new stage like this, new stage, and then you say this is the stage beta or testing or development or whatever. And you give a good description right here, deployment description, blah blah blah, something there. And then we deploy it. I just want to show you that. So then we go to stages. Of course, now we have both have this Lambda exposed on the default and on the beta stages. And what is it with all of these stages right here? Why does it matter if it's beta or not beta? You can actually see right here the URL. The just differs. That's the only thing. So we just have it on the URL. That means you can actually have one version of. You can have one Lambda on one endpoint, and you can have another Lambda on another endpoint. So you can actually create a whole application like this if you wanted to. I think that Lambdas they're stronger when it's like a specific task that they're made for, and it's a smaller task. Then Lambdas are quite good. If it's a larger thing, then I would still prefer a Spring Boot application if we are in a Java world. So here we can see how to invoke the URL. Let me just copy that. Copy link location. This is a default endpoint. So I'll go to a terminal. That was the terminal output from yesterday or last time, not yesterday, last time. Yeah, and here we can see that is the endpoint. And if I use -v for verbose, then we should be able to see the header. Look at this weird header right there, right? So now we can programmatically set the header. We can decide whatever should be returned in a much more precise manner. Yesterday, you can actually see here we did not get any headers. That was another endpoint we made. That was the video tutorial 1. The only thing we get there is that here we're just returning the object, but that means that then we cannot control the header. There's no custom header on that. Isn't it awesome? I am really happy with those Lambdas. I think it's really interesting. I did not like the documentation, if I should say something. Here we have set up Lambda proxy integration for an API gateway. I know they're supposed to be general or generic because it is made for all languages. I just didn't like it. I was stuck for like an hour, half an hour. Yeah, maybe you like it. Let me know in the comments as usual. I will upload the code also as usual. Is there anything to say about the code? I think we went through all of it. The Amazon console, do not be scared. I was scared in the beginning. I really didn't like it because there were so many things. But you can actually you can make sure that you can only see. Yeah, you can make some favorites, right? So you have you can make favorites actually. If you press a small star next to Lambda, then you can make favorites in your services. Because there's a lot in there. You see all of that stuff right there, right? If you press the little star right there, then it ends up under favorites, and then it's a bit easier to find what you are dealing with, because you're probably not, you're most likely not using everything, and that's also why they made the search bar. I think the search is quite good. So, thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for all the nice comments. It makes me feel very, very happy. It also gives me energy to make more of these videos. What else should I just press this button once again? Then I just want to say, hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.